Welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity in Diversity with Wanayran in Moving Cultures. Welcome to this celebration of life. With my guest, our guest, we are crossing our arms to say no to injustice, to say no to intolerance, to say no to racism, to say no to discrimination, to say no to exclusion, and say yes to unity and diversity, and also yes to the possibilities to be part of the global family. Our guest, 209, is an artist. She's a craft woman. She's a fashion designer, and she's an entrepreneur and businesswoman because she has managed to get her brand from different levels of work and different levels of connections. She understands the power of tradition through the work of textiles and prints and drawings and also designs. She goes from fashion, clothing, jewelry, bags, and all kinds of accessories, and she keeps innovating. She keeps trying to go one step farther and farther in her work. So let's welcome Ruth Abade from Kenya. How are you,
Hello.
Ruth?
I'm fine, thank you.
So
It's
happy that
very
you accepted the invitation to talk to us and share your knowledge, your journey. What happened in these past 2.5 years, and what are you preparing for 2022? So let's find out who is Ruth Abade.
so I'm a fashion designer based in Kenya. I wouldn't really call myself a fashion designer, to be honest, because I didn't study fashion. I studied industrial design. So I call myself basically a designer. Um, we do a lot of clothing, a lot of bags. We also do jewelry. But right now, I'm changing the way I'm doing business. I'm trying to change. I've been using a lot of African print that we buy here. And now I'm trying to change and use more of handmade fabrics. So I'm printing my own fabric using batik, and also trying to see if we can expand it so that we can be able to also expand the market. So most people also start using batik as opposed to African print. Um, the journey is a long journey for sure. So I don't expect it to be done in a year, maybe 2 years. So right now I've been away for a month and a half, trying to see different people who are willing to learn. So I've been teaching on batik. Uh, um, and when I left, I had given them a time span of 2 months to at least be able to organize themselves and start on the production. So the whole idea is be able to have a big production of batik for the Kenyan market, because most of the batik we get from Tanzania, and yet we can be able to actually produce it here as well. So that's basically what I'm working on as we speak. I think the market is changing a lot. And in the next 2 years, I foresee that a lot of people will want to start going back to the basics, like what do you own? What is your own? And so this is just more like a preparation for me to start enabling people to start producing their own fabrics and to have an identity of some sort, because we don't necessarily have anything in the textile industry that we can say is actually made in Kenya. We have factories here, but the production is not enough to enable a lot of people use, either because of consistency or colors or stuff like that. So right now, that's what I'm working on. It's been exciting, but challenges, of course, are there all the time. So trying to give people a new craft. So this was very voluntary. It's not, I didn't get any funding. I just saved up some money and decided, let me just go and try and see what I can come up with. So now I'm back in Nairobi because I need to also make money so that if I have to be able to support other people, I have money to do it. So it's kind of indirectly from, sometimes we assume that you do everything by yourself, but in actual sense, it's actually a contribution from people who support my business because they're also part of it, part of the journey. So if I make money through my business, that is the money that I also use to be able to support whatever I want to do in my endeavors. So the batik production, I feel like it's an ongoing thing. But the nice thing is once people here in Kenya start to resonate with it, I think the expansion will be big. But the problem is to foresee where will people get the fabric if we reach that point. And so that's the reason why I'm starting to train people who can be able to use that as a way also of making money for their businesses.
Ruth, where do you acquire the base fabric? It is cotton, is hand knitted, how it works?
So for the batik, it has to be cotton because the dyes that we use are VAT dyes, which is cotton-based dyes. So at the beginning, I started sourcing for different fabrics. So I'd either buy secondhand cotton, I'd buy fabrics that are sold that are from Tanzania because Tanzania have cotton fabric. I also experimented with fabric that is available in the stores here that also comes from China, but it's cotton. And then I also just collected from secondhand stores anything that was cotton just to see the different ways that they both absorb the dyes. The cotton fabric from Tanzania is good, but it's a little bit heavy and thick, so it's good for more structured stuff. But then we're trying to see, is there another alternative? What happens with very light, thin fabric? So I collected some fabric that I found in a warehouse here that had Indian cotton. So that was very thin, almost like Ethiopian cotton. And see how it absorbs the dyes as well. So we've been like just collecting fabrics from everywhere to see because most of the time a lot of people go to the store and they're told it's cotton, but if it isn't cotton, it absorbs very different because the dyes that we use are VAT dyes. So you're able to tell which is the best one. But because Tanzanians do a lot of batik, the cotton that they use is good.
Ruth,
So
tell
that's
us
one.
about your brand. What is name Blackfly? What it represents, and what are your icon products?
So initially, it's a funny story, but in 2007, no, 2002 is when I started the business. I called it Blackfly, and it was more for the Kenyan market. It was more like I basically coined two words, black and fly. And fly is like a slang English word for pretty or beautiful. And so it was more like to make Black people look beautiful. And it was targeting the Kenyan market, but it has evolved. And of course, with business evolves. So now our market completely changed. It became, it stopped being exclusively Kenyan and just became an international brand. So we basically deal with anybody who likes what we do. We do a lot of fashion. We use African print. I collect fabrics from all over. So the ones that you see were from scrap pieces. So the bags is actually, initially it was doing upcycling and recycling using all the pieces that we had been using to make clothes. And then how do you, what, instead of throwing away all the pieces, we decided to start a line of bags. So that's how the bag started. The clothing was more from basically what we had. But once the bags became really big, we had to even buy scrap pieces from other tailors. Now, the scrap pieces from other tailors is anything.
Yes.
For the leather component, we had to start using recycled leather jackets because the whole idea was upcycling. So we didn't want to compromise on the whole aspect of recycling. So we use leather jackets for the leather component of the bags, and then we also use recycled fabrics from all over. We do a lot of mixing and matching. We don't necessarily change the structure of the leathers that we buy. We work with it as is. So,
yeah, inside.
yeah. Oh, nice. I remember those bags.
Yeah, you remember this.
Yeah.
You made it for me, and I have the whole process. I follow the whole process, from scratch.
So everything we do is upcycling. Of
Yes.
course, with time, a lot of people also got involved in upcycling. So a lot of the straps became an issue because we also used to buy recycled straps from old bags that we get from the secondhand market. And those have become like really difficult now to get. And we are now starting to search for other alternatives as we speak of how to make, other different kinds of straps that we can be using on our bags. So we are trying to experiment on different techniques, but we also want to start making our own. For the bags, it's been a very interesting journey. It keeps on changing all the time. We still wanted the whole idea to be more function as opposed to decorative. So very basic structured bags that someone has a purpose for using it. So that's why we have so many basic structures. But the market also has come into it, the whole idea. So we have to keep on innovating and creating new techniques. But this coming couple of years, I think, because now I'm getting into more handmade stuff, I want to really push also our bags into that direction of doing bags using more handmade fabrics as opposed to fabrics that are secondhand. I mean, African print, especially now that we know where it is coming from. So um, it's going to be, of course, gradual, but we want to use more of the fabrics that we make now for all our bags, which will still be one-offs, but they'll have more of a basic story to it. And so that also will help with the identity of, production, because now everybody uses the same fabric. So what makes you different, and what makes other people not think that you are another brand, because everything is now looking very similar anyway nowadays. So
yeah, the shopping bag is a signature product of Blackfly, because people can copy it, but they don't look the same,
The same,
and we have gone through an evolution, because when I started getting the bags from you, they didn't have a zip, and now they have a zip. And I think that also is an element to take in consideration, like you say, on the evolution of the products, because also improves the sales and the clientele. Because a lot of because I was buying a number of bags to give as presents, a lot of my friends used to say, no, but it would be nice if they have a zipper, because it's going to be safer, because they didn't actually use it as a shopping bag. They use it for the personal traveling. What can you tell us about this bag?
So the shopper bags, they came up in, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years ago. And the whole idea of it was basically a shopper bag. Like, we wanted people to use bags to shop.
To go to the market.
And then, and during that time, just before, actually, we started making the shopper bags, and then the government banned use of plastic paper bags. And so the time was right. It was more like we already had transitioned, we had already done our product development stages, we had tested the product, and then this happened. And so we wanted to have shopper bags, and we only made 2 sizes then. It was a large and a medium. And the medium then was called a small, because we were like, when people go to the supermarket, they buy a lot of stuff. It has to be a sturdy bag. It has to be a bag that can carry everything you go and buy in the supermarket without breaking apart. But then people started using it for work. People started using it for travel. People started
Exactly.
using it. And so that's when things like how do you need to have a zipper on it or something to close it with started evolving. So when people started doing that, it also changed to the whole idea of why we wanted to do it, even though, you know, sometimes you also have to be open-minded and listen to what the client is asking for. So the clients would be like, okay, it is a shopper bag, but I want to use it as a handbag. Can I have a zip? And so we would put zips on them.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
talking about that also, it's like small details, like talking about the design, is like when you put the zipper out, for example, this one, we have the leather outside and the zip
yeah.
on top. And then you also have the design with the what they call hidden zip, yeah, that it goes on inside. And I think, tell me about those little elements that actually also improve the sales of the product.
So for usually
Okay, this
the
is the
design,
example. This is the hidden one.
yeah, for the inside. So so most of the time when you create a design of whatever you want, you have to think about what the person's going to be using it for. When the bags are smaller and you
Mm-hmm.
put a inside zipper, it makes the size even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Because the components of the bag that you're going to put inside your bag is determined by the closure that you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
When we started doing the shopper bags, we didn't want to put a zipper because we thought, if you're going to go to the supermarket and you're going to buy bread, a baguette, it's so long, you might not need a zipper. If you're going to buy
Exactly.
like, big things that consume the space and the dimension of the bag, then you might need to have more space. Zippers also reduce the space inside your bag, which means
Mm-hmm.
if you to carry so many things, your bag might not be able to close. So that was also the reason why we didn't put zippers on the shopper bags. But for handbags that people are going to be carrying, to carry your laptop, to carry your this, you probably might need a zipper. And so when we made the tote bags, we thought about that. And we even thought about the size of the laptops that were in the
Mm-hmm.
market,
Like
what
this one.
sizes people would use. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that. But we
And it's
also didn't want to specifically make it into a bag only that you can use for a laptop. Because then the thing is, we got clients who are from all over the world. So if you have a client who's in Amsterdam, for example, they cycle all along. They don't need a handbag. They need a bag that has a sling on it so that they can carry it around their back, you know?
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you,
But
sorry, you managed to also make functional the bags and give possibilities, because these ones can be removed like you
yeah,
do with a business bag,
yes,
and then you
yes,
transform it into a regular tote bag.
a normal bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
then the whole concept, the whole idea of the bags is and exactly what it is. If you do design, your job in design is to be able to solve an issue, to create, reduce a problem. And of course, most of the time when you're solving a problem, you end up creating another problem that you have to solve. And right now, that's basically what we want to do. And I'm trying to experiment. So I've been working on ideas of how can we also make more fabric waterproof and make it
Mm-hmm.
a home, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't
Mm-hmm.
have lamination is a little bit costly. Can we be able to wax our fabrics and by ourselves, and what are the techniques that we need to do? So those are some of the things that I want to experiment as well for the future, so that is it possible to make them more waterproof? And if that's the thing, it also changes the more dynamics of the
Ruth, when we're talking about traditional textiles, it's also a big difference when you get a handmade product, or you get a printed one. So let's talk about this mud cloth. There is a, you can tell us a little bit the story of this fabric.
Okay, so when I started doing the tote bags and the handbags, the idea was because of the durability of it. A lot of people use their bags a lot. You find a lot of women who would use a bag like for a month without changing it. And so we wanted to make a more sturdy bag, but we also wanted to only work with fabrics that are handmade. And so I started collecting fabrics. So mud cloth was one of the fabrics that we got years ago that we wanted to use on our bags. And it's funny because when we started using the mud cloth, they weren't that popular. You know, it was just something that we had in mind. We need to start collecting fabrics. And it's not only to collect fabrics to use for the bags, but it's also educative in a way, because then people are like, what fabric is that and how is it made? But the Malian fabric, the reason why it was called mud cloth is because they use mud and they use it to make the fabrics then. But also with the market of mud cloth exploded over the years. And so now it's not as easy to find the traditional mud cloth where they did it by hand, because they got such a huge market for it over the years that now they even just screen print some of them.
Yes.
So they weave fabric, they put the fabric in panels, because they weave the fabric in really small panels, and then they join them. So there's always a seam in between them. And then after that, they had joined them, then they sell it like a whole piece of fabric.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the cost versus design in traditional goods? Because you have three elements there: design, traditional material, yeah, and in the product itself.
So the cost of production usually for making things that are handmade are usually much higher as compared to fabric that you just collect in the market. And the traditional fabrics that we have, um, even in the market, a little bit more costly. Like it takes more time to make it. You need more material. Sometimes even the material itself isn't available in the market. You probably have to source for the material. All those costings are usually what makes them a little bit higher. So you find that because you have to, like now for the batik, we have to get cotton from Tanzania. Sometimes we have to buy the dyes from Tanzania. We have to pay customs on it. All that costing has to be incorporated in the pricing of whatever we have. Now, it depends on who your brand is and what your brand stands for. Usually, it's important also for people to understand that as much as you might want to do, like really expensive things, there are people who might resonate with your brand and might like your brand, but they cannot afford the things that you have to offer that are very expensive. And so sometimes in business, it's my business, we also have products that are much cheaper, and then we have products that are more expensive. So it's like having the same style, but if you use different materials on it, of course the different pricing comes along. There are people who are willing to experiment with the really expensive ones and the really cheap ones. When we started our brand, we wanted it to be affordable. And so we didn't want to have crazy prices. We wanted everybody to have something from our brand. And so we did really good products, and we made sure that the production of it, the finishing, the stitching, everything was really good. But we didn't also price it very high. There are always like pros and cons for that, because the pros of it is that you're able to sell your products to a large group of people. But if you also start your costings when they're really low, it becomes really difficult to hike the prices as you go. And that's some of the challenges that we usually get. Even though the costings of things are going up due to inflation, things are becoming more expensive, of course, you have to incorporate that in the pricing of your bags. But because people are still used to buying things at a certain price from you, they don't understand that factor that, you know, there's
Mhm.
inflation and things are becoming
Mhm.
more expensive. They still assume that they need to buy it at a lower price. So sometimes that's the disadvantage of starting your pricing really low, because when you start increasing it, people assume otherwise.
There is
That's when it's
resistance.
grown. Yes,
There
yes.
is resistance. Let me add some images to our conversation group. So this is our image of the event. This is very small. Let me see if we can manage to have it a little bit bigger. So this is like a butterfly that is being ride by women, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was actually, it was so funny because this was as when I was probably like 17, it was a stamp that someone gave me
Uh-huh.
and I really liked it. And
Okay.
I was like, this is gonna be what I'm gonna use if I have my business. And that's how it started.
Okay. It was like a
Yeah.
childhood memory, right? In a way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Let
it
me
was
go.
more from a stamp, and I was like, this is it. This is exactly what resonates with who I am and what I want to do.
Okay, so we
So
have
those are
here
some of
the
the products. This is
mhm.
actually one of the most challenging things. And I think this is the reason why a lot of people have tried also to copy our designs, and it's very difficult because we mix print on print.
Mhm.
And there has to be the print on print means that you have, it's not just about print, it's about making it unison, making it one, and
Mhm.
still using more than one print on another with another print. So
Yes.
color combinations, and this is also something that I realized you can't teach anyone.
Yes,
So because of the,
exactly.
so for the bags, usually I do all the combinations by myself
Uh-huh.
because
Fantastic.
I can't, yeah, because everybody has their own touch. For the jewelry, uh, it started maybe now 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And I used to do jewelry. I used to work with artisans, design them and give them. But you know, I had a challenge with that as well. And that's why I started to open my own. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Where you design, give it to an artisan. And of course, the artisan has its own, clientele who also go to him and make products from him. So I started seeing a lot of the designs that I made in the market, and he
Mhm.
he didn't feel bad about it. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. The fact that someone liked the design and took the same design and produced more of the same. So there was no inclusion, there was no uh, respect of your design, really.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so because of that, I just opened my own studio and employed someone who works full time. And during this time, I only uh, decided that I was going to make jewelry, but all the jewelry that we did was going to be asymmetrical. And
Exactly.
so all the jewelry that we make are asymmetrical. One side and the other side, they're not the same.
Mhm. They're
It's
unique
the
pieces.
opposite of each. Yeah. And so
Mhm.
I design most of them and I make most of them in my studio. I don't put them out much on the Instagram page because I still, you know how when you like something so much, and of
You
course you
copy
need
it,
to
yeah?
sell it,
Yeah.
but are you ready to see other people make it? Because there's so many good craftsmen and women here,
Yes.
and a lot of people didn't. A lot of them are not designers, and
Mhm.
so they do things that they see. And so
Exactly.
I'm feeling like I'm not necessarily ready to put out all the designs that I do
Mhm.
on the Instagram page, for example, because I'm going to find them all over.
Mhm.
So
I know
that's
what you
why
mean.
for
It's
the
protection of
jewelry,
your images
yeah.
and your.
So for the jewelry, I don't put them out at all. And if I do, it will just be once in a long time.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, let's
So
talk about the face mask. during the
Oh,
la pandemia.
so this started in 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So during that time in 2020 or March, actually it was really weird because there was a friend who asked me to make masks way before. And I was like, yeah, but no. But I thought about it and I started designing it. And I told my people, we should try. I mean, who knows? Let's make fashion masks. So, and we didn't really think about the pandemic then. It was just more like, it will be a fashion statement,
Mhm.
But they didn't want to do it. And so we didn't. And I didn't see the reason to push it. But
Uh-huh.
when March came, uh, we had to close because the government said, oh, you need to stay home, uh, reduce the movements, work from home and everything. And the people who work for me are breadwinners in their family, and most of them don't even have savings really. And so we closed for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I did a lot of research of how to make masks, the samples, the everything, I even tried to make them waterproof, all these things, because there was so much data coming out during that time. And so after 2 weeks, I asked if a few of them could come, and everybody came.
Uh-huh.
And so at the end of March, we just continued working. We didn't stop. But that was all we did. We only made masks. And
Uh-huh.
we made masks and gave out masks. So for each mask anybody purchased, we gave out some for free.
Oh, wonderful.
So we made, oh my God, I think all we did it was so much, it was so crazy. But because everybody came, including the jewelry people who came, were like, the fashion people can't be the only one making masks and the bags. What about the other guy who makes jewelry? And so they made the nose bridges for all the masks that we did. So we made the masks, they made the metal component of it, and we
The
used
one
them
that
on the,
comes here in the
yeah.
nose. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Wow.
And so at least it was inclusion for everybody being part of it. And that's how it actually started. It was more
Mhm.
like the metal smith, the people who did jewelry couldn't sell jewelry during that time. So what could they do? And so we decided that they were going to start making masks. And so I had to design how the masks were going to be put. Of course, the first trials were not great. And then we experimented, and with time we changed it, and now it's fine.
Mhm.
But always lived on was masks. And of course, masks don't make you that much money.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. But it
So
was part of
during
the
all those
process.
time, yeah, but during so all that time, uh, you feel like when you have a business, you have to make decisions, and some of the
Mhm.
decisions that you make if you have a team of employees who work for you, you as a business person, if you believe that your business is not just about you, but about all the people that work for you, um, even during those times, you have to still, go through the hard times together, like you go
Yes.
through the good times together. And so I kept the whole team that we had. And what we did during that time was to use that moment, all the savings during the years, keep everybody. And so I did.
Mhm. Ruth, you have here another product. There's cushions, right? Cushion covers.
We do cushion covers. We
Mhm.
do covers exclusively.
Okay, let's see.
We do,
Sorry. These are the first clutches that you were promoting
do
when we met, but now they have changed a bit. Here are
yeah,
you
we
also with jewelry.
um,
Let me get you back to the main image, Ruth. Ruth, let's continue with this conversation about the designs.
So this is a picture of the jewelry actually that I did. And what else? Is that me? Sorry.
And also the headgear, you know, I think it's part of the whole styling mode. Yeah. So well, tell us about the story behind this photo.
I met someone actually in like one of the what was it? It was like a campaign that we're doing, and she is a makeup artist. And so when I met her, she was talking about having to launch her makeup thing, and she was going to have a photo shoot. And so she asked for the jewelry that she saw that I had during the meet that we had. And so she asked for a couple that she could use, and that's what she used. So she just tagged the pictures of the photo shoot that she had.
Wow, beautiful. Ruth, I'm going to move a little bit faster with the images because we are reaching the 30 minutes of our talk, and I'm really interested to see your work on the printing material. So we have some designs here, very fresh, beautiful, with details, yeah? Okay, this is your line of clothing and jewelry? Yeah.
Hold on, let me see if I can open it.
Okay, these are also clutches in functional bags, right? The cross ones, they have two functions, right?
Hold on, I think I can't see your image.
Okay, let me stop it, and then I'm coming back to get the images fresh. Where are we here? Okay. There we go. Okay, now I'm coming to you. Okay, just a second. Okay, now I'm coming to get to the image. Okay. I think it's this one. Can you see it?
No. Yeah.
Now it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
see, okay. So this is more of a lot of, now we are starting to use more leather and less of the fabrics. And so we're getting a lot of people who are starting to appreciate more and more of leather. And also because the market we have, not so many people use genuine leather and recycled genuine leather, let's say that. Not so many people use that because we have a lot of people who are now using new leather. And so using it and incorporating it. The market is very dynamic. There are people who prefer more of the African print because of the color. There are more people who want less. And so it's just expanding it. We'd never used to make wallets, but now we do.
Very beautiful. Okay, this is Santos, our guest artist. We're surrounded by all the bags. Very beautiful. Then we have here Catalina, another guest. We were so privileged to be working with you. At the moment, the guests wanted to get presents to take to their countries, and they love your bags. Here you are with Catalina from Colombia. Okay, here we're starting now with the print materials, yeah?
So here, so I had gone to Nigeria, and it was more like, I think it's important sometimes as a designer, if you want to do something, you need to understand it from the core. And so the fabrics that were handmade and hand printed, actually a lot of it came from Nigeria, where they used to do a lot of indigo dyeing and the process of it. And so I took a trip to go and actually see where it was done and how it was done. Many years ago, that's what they did. And I purchased some of the fabrics that I got when I was there. And these were some of the adire fabrics. They call it adire, which is indigo, printed
Yeah.
fabric.
Just give me let's continue with the elaboration of this.
So their process was during that year very different. Their processes were, they never did use wax. They used paste, cassava paste. They made a paste out of it. Their motifs were very differently made. And just to see how they did it then traditionally. Of course, over the years, the indigo dyeing is very time consuming, very manual, takes a lot of time. That when the synthetic dyes came into the market, a lot of people started using synthetic dyes, which is what we call the VAT dyes now. But the technique still goes on to date. They still use a lot of wax to date. So it was nice to go and get the fabrics that they had. This is now what I started to do. And I started this late last year when I was like, I need to start printing fabric. I can't find plain cotton Tanzanian fabric, so I bought already dyed Tanzanian fabric. And the price of the dyed Tanzanian fabric was the same price as the Chinese plain cotton fabric. So I was like, let me try and see. So that's how I started. So I started by freehand. I draw, partition it, and use wax to paint. The wax I get from here in Nairobi, and I make the stamps. I buy the stamps from Tanzania. But I've been trying to see if I can also make my own stamps. So before the stamps came, I was making my own stamps in sponge and using them to produce, because the freehand was taking forever. And of course, freehand takes forever. So if you're going to do anything and draw using wax, the price shouldn't and will not be the same as if you had to get a stamp and repeat the pattern.
Definitely. Okay, this is one mod cloth again. These are some of the kitenge materials. Tell us, what is this, Ruth? This is the paint?
So this is the wax. The wax that we use. So the wax that you use, you can reuse it, because wax and water don't mix. So once you've removed the wax, it solidifies. And of course, once you have printed plain fabric, you put dye on it and you remove the dye, the wax changes color over time. So when you buy it, it's completely white, but with time it keeps changing. And we just keep on reusing and reusing the wax that we have. So this is just wax that has been used over and over again. But it doesn't go bad or it doesn't go stale. So this is basically now when we do the stamping. And the stamping is using the sponge, making a tabletop, using fire. It's always been like a challenge using a charcoal fire, jiko. Because it's very difficult to be able to control the heat, because the wax can't be too hot and it shouldn't be too cold. So trying to be able to moderate the heat is sometimes a little bit difficult. But with time, you get really better at it, so you know what to do. So this is stamping. We just applied the wax. We haven't dyed it. So the fabric came blue, and then we put the pattern that you can see on it, and do the whole thing regularly, as regular as possible, and then dye it, and then you get now the end product of the fabric that you want.
You have some material with you, right, that you can show us?
Yeah, so let's see. So this,
yes, beautiful.
So this has been done using a stamp. And the stamp, you can see it covers the original color. So the fabric was actually red, and it's stamped with black.
Okay. Ruth, and is that material durable and the painting doesn't fade?
Yeah, so that's exactly also another reason why I actually started doing batik. When you buy fabric from China, you don't know. And when you go to the market and ask them, does it run? They'll say no. But most of the time, sometimes it runs, but they have no control, right? They have no control. They're not the ones who made it. But if you have to make a sale, sometimes you have to just say yes. Batik, when you put it through the whole process and remove the color and the paint and the dye, you do it in really hot water, and that hot water fixes the dye.
Okay, so it's like this one is from the tie-dye in Kariobangi women. Yeah, from Kariobangi women. And I think, like you say, they have also mastered the technique that, because this one is like 5 years old, the dress, you know, and I have washed it and washed it over. And it's, I'm very pleased, you know, because the quality of their paints and the way they apply the tie and dye has remained not only in this dress, but in different products that I bought from the Kariobangi women.
So that's the thing about the dye. The vat dyes are insoluble dyes. What it means is that it's not soluble in water. And it also means that if you take the dye as a spoon and put it in water and put your fabric and wash it, it will all wash out. So for you to change the vat dyes from an insoluble state to a soluble state, you need to use chemicals. And one of the chemicals is hydrosulfide, and another chemical is caustic, which is sodium hydroxide. Those two chemicals together change the composition of the vat dyes from the original insoluble state to a soluble state. And during that soluble state is when now people end up using the dye, which means now it can be able to be absorbed onto the fabric. When that process happens, at a point when the dye and the chemicals have changed the composition of the dye from a soluble state, it starts to oxidize, which means if you put it out in the sun, you see the color changing sometimes from, it looks blue, but sometimes it wasn't blue, it's supposed to be orange, you know, that same process. So that process, when it starts oxidizing, the oxidizing part where it goes back to the original color. So if you oxidize, for example, black dye, when you make it insoluble, it looks green. And then when it turns back the color, it becomes black. So before it changes from that insoluble state to a soluble state, and then back to an insoluble state, that process of oxidation where it changes makes the dye go back to the original state of being insoluble.
Wow.
And that insoluble state is what makes the dye not come out. Why you still have it the same color, because when it's in insoluble state, it's not soluble in water, which means every time you wash it, it'll still always remain the same. The fabric might get old, but the colors might fade over time, but it'll always still remain the same.
Wow, Ruth.
So that's the advantage about using batik and tie and dye, is that at least you have more control and you can be able to explain to a client, listen, this is what's gonna happen. And sometimes when you dye, you always have to, you know, you put all the materials, whether it was green dye, black dye in the same pot and wash it. And the color you see might just be the color because the water that they used was dirty and we didn't rinse it too well until the end, but the color doesn't change.
Wow. Ruth, thank you. It has been very insightful, and I know that definitely we need more time to understand the dynamics of designing and also of creating materials that will be allowing your work to become more interesting and innovative, because this is what you are reaching, trying to create products that will identify with you and then nobody else is doing. And that definitely opens a better market for Blackfly. Ruth, please, can you give a message about unity, diversity, and inclusion?
I think it is fantastic that you're able to join everybody, which is basically a great thing, being able to blend and mix and meet different people from all over the world, being able to educate people from all over the world, to educate, to be able to share wisdom with everybody that you meet. I'm glad that I am part of this network, and I hope that we'll be able to even get more insight from other people from everywhere, because education just never stops.
Ruth, thank you so much for the work you do and for being a very important and loyal member of Moving Cultures. You're always there sharing your talents, your knowledge, and also promoting unity and diversity, because your job allows you to keep connecting with the world. So blessings, and I hope to see you in the near future, Ruth. I keep following your adventures with this new way of dealing with craft that you are dealing, and it's beautiful, you know, what the results you are getting. Thank you,
Thank
Ruth.
you. All
Okay,
right. Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.